Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to Mike is streaming stuff. So recently, something very exciting happened. I don't know if you guys can tell based on my background. I know there's a Superman thing up there, Batman thing up there, another Superman toy up there, and you can't see if it's another Batman thing up there. But I have been more of a DC fan than I have been a Marvel fan. That's been my entire life. And yes, I love many of Marvel's characters. I don't have to go through the gamut, but I've mentioned Cyclops multiple times as being one of my favorites of all time, alongside Doctor Doom, alongside ow. I got the two, and I blanked. No, but I do love a lot of Marvel characters. Love a lot of Marvel stories. Obviously, the classics like the Phoenix Saga. I even like some of the newer classics like Schism. The ultimate, the whole Ultimate Universe was amazing until Ultimatum, and that's I don't want to get down that road. Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty. There's a lot to love about Marvel, but I've always liked DC more. Whether it's Superman for all seasons or whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, the Killing Joke, the Green Lantern Blackest Night. There's something more exciting about gods on Earth because Marvel is very relatable. It's based in the real world. These are places that you can go to. You know that Spider-Man lives out of Queens or Brooklyn or whatever it is. You know that the X-Men are upstate New York. You know that there's the West Coast Avengers who work out of Los Angeles or Seattle or whatever it is. So it's supposed to feel very lived in and very grounded. Not very grounded, very real. I've always liked the idea of gods on Earth because just like when I used to love the Hercules Legendary Journeys, even though that series was a little silly, or even something more like just Greek mythology in general, there's something about the fact that these beings can walk above us, but they choose to try to walk amongst us. Whether it's Wonder Woman at Themyscira, or Superman being literally from another planet, or even Batman being a very rich genius who, for all intents and purposes, doesn't need to do what he does. Granted, we all know it's because he's broken, because he never left that stage of the little kid who couldn't help his parents. But still, his psychology aside, he doesn't need to. Green Lantern literally police the galaxy. Martian Manhunter. And I mean, I should only give you three examples. But whatever, the point is, there's just been more to me, personally, when it comes to those stories, because there's always been this struggle of these godlike beings to save people while trying to see from their perspective. And that's why the strongest one was able to do it, because he was raised among these people. It's actually a struggle for him to step into, or at least I feel like it is, to the amount of power he has than it is for him to feel and connect with humans. And I'm talking about Superman, of course, which is, it's a whole different issue. But there was a thing in Kill Bill where he tried to explain that Superman acted weak because that's how he sees people. That's wrong. That's completely wrong. Superman is that. Superman is Clark Kent. He was raised as Clark Kent. His powers always scared him because he is just a normal kid in his eyes, and he always has been. But he's expected to be larger than life because his powers are larger than life. And because of that, he's seen as a god, but he's always seen himself as a guy. It's the reverse of Lex Luthor, who sees himself as a god, but he's just a guy. That's why they're the polar opposites. Anyway, the new announcement of the well, if you guys know, I've always liked the DC movies, sometimes more than the Marvel ones. I used to just automatically say more than Marvel, but I do love Marvel movies more than DC, just because of the continuity and because of just the overall feel of the films. DC, when it gets it right, Aquaman, Birds of Prey, the Suicide Squad, even for me, Zack Snyder's Justice League, it gets it amazingly right. But when it gets it wrong, the original Suicide Squad, the original cut of Batman vs Superman, then it's like, oh man, you've wasted everybody's time, and you have access to all these characters. Why is it so hard for you to put this together? So because the original DC Extended Universe was so bad, them putting together DC Studios with James Gunn and Peter Safran at the head got me excited. It's kind of like, I want to equate it to the fact that recently I was trying to buy cologne, and the lady at the counter let me know, very nicely, that the cologne that I used to wear was discontinued. At first I was like, oh my goodness, how could they discontinue it? Then I realized I've been wearing the same cologne or a variation of it since high school. I am now in my mid-30s. Why in the world would I still be wearing that? Why not do something different and change? And almost instantly I was like, you know what, let's do it. because I stopped smelling the cologne. I'm not excited about it. It's just something I'm used to wearing. So why not just stick with it? That's what it reminds me of with the DC Studios announcement. Because when DC Studios was formed, we learned that The Rock was out as Black Adam, Henry Cavill was out as Superman. They were stopping production on certain movies. They were doing this and they're doing that. We're like, why are you messing with it? But guys, seriously, how many DC movies did you genuinely like? And I don't want edgelords and trolls to be like, oh, I like all of them. No, you didn't. Even me, because I used to be that same person who's like, well, this is actually a good movie. No, if it's a good movie, you don't have to put actually in front of it. Like, you don't have to try and no one looked at Wakanda Forever or the original Black Panther and was like, these are actually good movies. No, they're good movies. And that's it, point blank, period. But so when James Gunn took over and basically eradicated the whole DCEU, or put some of them in the Elseworlds, like the Batman with Rob Pattinson is now Elseworlds. It's not the main continuity. And I think there's some other stuff too. I think Shazam is essentially an Elseworlds story now in its own universe. The Rock should go there, actually. Oh, whatever. He basically broke down the slate. So the slate is as follows, and I'm excited about a lot of the slate that's coming out. First, that he said was Superman Legacy. Now, I have been Superman and Lois on the CW is my favorite Superman because he actually inspires hope. He actually interacts with his family like a human being, and you believe when this man says he's going to do whatever he can to save the day. Other versions of the character, Christopher Reeve, I did like, but he never really seemed to face any big threats. I was more concerned with being Clark or, being comedic. Not him in particular, but the director. Brandon Routh, as awesome as he was in League of Tomorrow, Legends of Tomorrow, and in Arrow, he wasn't quite there yet. He just looked like Christopher Reeve. Dean Cain was okay back in the 90s, but, that show, Lois and Clark, I feel like that's more of like a rose-tinted glasses situation. I feel like if I watched it now, I wouldn't like it. Henry Cavill, I feel like he never got the chance to be Superman. He never really got that leeway to not just be this dour, like, oh, these burdens of powers. Like, you know what I mean? He never was able to be the inspiration of hope, the beacon of hope that Superman is supposed to be. Remember, Superman is supposed to be something that we aspire to. Like, it's because he's so good. It's because his parents raised him right, and he just happens to be the strongest person on the planet, or probably in the universe. And those two things make it so that he's supposed to be perfect. He is not. If you read the comics, he isn't. He falls short plenty of times. But he does what's right because that's what was told to him. And even when he fails, he still tries. So Superman Legacy, I'm super excited about. It's apparently going to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his American, his human upbringing, which is awesome. It sounds like it's going to be a retelling of the origin of Superman, which is fine because it hasn't, unlike Batman and Spider-Man, you have not seen the origins of Superman done to death. Yes, I think Man of Steel did it really well on Krypton, but after that initial sequence, and I've watched the beginning of Man of Steel many times because I loved how they did the sequence on Krypton. It was so awesome. If they would have just made him a little happier, I think we'd be in a different situation right now. But, the past is the past. The second movie that I'm excited about is The Authority. Now, The Ultimates was a comic book that took Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Black Widow, and all the Avengers and put them in the real world, basically, but like real situations. So you had weapons of mass destruction, you have border policies, you had all these different things, and you also mixed them with infidelity, and it was a very adult version of the Avengers, and I loved it. I loved Ultimates and Ultimates 2. It was awesome. The writer of the Ultimates was Mark Miller, who also wrote The Authority. The Authority's whole thing is that they're not going to listen to what the government says. They're not going to listen to what most other superheroes say. This team is getting the job done by any means. It doesn't matter if it costs lives, as long as they're saving lives and defeating the villain. That's why they're called The Authority, because they are who they answer to. They don't answer to anyone else. They are in a ship that exists in multiple places at once. The team is nuts. I won't even go over all the members. You should read the comics yourself. They're fantastic. I've always loved The Authority. The fact that James Gunn loves The Authority kind of makes sense as to why I love his movies so much, because we have similar sensibilities in that it seems like more than anything else, he lets the characters drive the story. So there's a lot of for example, I'll use Black Adam, for example. Black Adam didn't drive the story. He just was there, and people around him were like, we have to do this, we have to do that. He was just along for the ride. The Batman was 50-50. Rob Pattinson's Bruce Wayne was kind of driving the story, trying to figure it out, but at the same time, you had the Riddler kind of, basically pushing and forcing his hand. You know what I mean? Bruce is going to a funeral. Riddler puts in the car, and Bruce then has to figure things out. Whereas with the with like the Suicide Squad or Guardians of the Galaxy, even James Gunn's characters always they always push the story forward. It's always them first. They make stupid mistakes that cause this to happen. They do this that makes that happen. There's always a cause and effect for the characters who are very proactive, and I love his stories for that. And the Authority is the perfect team to do that. This I'm kind of iffy about. The Brave and the Bold. The Batman approach he's taking is to have Batman and his son Damian Wayne, who is his actual biological son with Talia al Ghul, who you might remember from Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, she's actually a great character. Talia is a great character in the comics. She's awesome. Damian is a fantastic character because he's used to servants. He was trained to kill since he was like 9 or 8 or something like that. So he has very little regard for human life. He doesn't have any patience. He eventually learns some by being, with his team. When the characters first introduced, for the most part, he was teamed up with Robin, who took over for Batman because everyone thought Batman was dead. Whole big comic book thing, whatever. He ended up being a fantastic Robin. I think he's still Robin to this day. And his multiple run-ins with like the different Bat family members is always hilarious because he doesn't understand. Like he treats Alfred like a servant. He doesn't really respect Tim Drake. I think he does look up to Dick Grayson because that's like Batman's like actual like son because he was raised by him. So so the fact that I don't know if it's going to be the Dick Grayson Batman or the Bruce Wayne Batman who's going to be with this Damian Wayne Robin, but either way, I mean, I'm on the fence with it. I'm just glad to see a Robin back in live action. Honestly, shout out to Chris O'Donnell. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow seems very interesting because they're taking an arc that I'm not familiar with, where Supergirl was actually kind of like floating through the stars because she was supposed to go protect Clark, but Clark was taken in by a family. So and Kara was older when Krypton blew up, so she was about 13. So she saw her entire family die, and she remembers it. Clark was a baby, so all he knows are the Kents. He doesn't know anything else from his past. Yeah, he's a little sad about it when he sees the hologram of his parents, but there's really, beside the familial and the bloodline connection, he doesn't really know them. Kara had to watch everyone that she was literally playing with. 13 is a very like aware age when it comes to like understanding friendships and the world around you. Not super intense, but like you have some connections. You know what I mean? Like I remember being 13, I was very aware of like if when my uncle passed away, like I knew, and I cried over that. My dog passed, same thing. So Kara had to watch that, and she now has to navigate her way of, well, what do I do now that Clark is okay? He's fine. He's being raised, and I'm just here. So it's interesting. Then there's also Swamp Thing, which is rumored to be directed by James Mangold, who also did Logan. I have high hopes for this only because I'm not into Swamp Thing as a character. I'm not. I know the character is either the sentient body of a man in the swamp or it's the memories of him who thinks he's a man. It sounds very awesome, but I've just never been into it, mainly because I'm just not into like I do love horror comics. I do. I absolutely love Werewolf by Night. But I don't know. Swamp Thing has just always been this just out of reach character for me. And I feel like I would be interested in it. I've tried even the show that they had on back with Allison Reed, and I can't remember who else was in it. But it just doesn't seem to be my cup of tea personally. But I am excited to see what they do with it. Then they're also doing TV. Those are the movies. Then they're doing TV shows, which is including an animated show called Creature Commandos. I'm not familiar with this at all. It sounds fun. I'll just read the description. Gunn is the writer of the series, already pegged. Amanda Waller forms another super team of monstrous prisoners. So I'm assuming that's like Werewolf, Dracula, kind of like a Nick Fury's Howling Commandos type situation where it's all the classic monsters that we know. Like I said, Werewolf, Dracula, Frankenstein, probably just doing adventures, I guess. I mean, it seems harmless enough. I'm sure it'll be like a Doom Patrol situation. Waller, I'm super excited about because it's Viola Davis and the team, the actual team itself from Peacemaker, basically going to save the world. So it's Amanda Waller stars, and it's going to feature Team Peacemaker. It's written by the young lady who did the Watchmen series on HBO, and somebody else who wrote for Supernatural. So I'm super excited about that. That's going to be awesome. This TV show I've been looking forward to, not the Waller one, the next one I'm going to say. I've been looking forward to this show, and I've wanted this show for so long because I love this character, Booster Gold, aka the epitome of imposter syndrome. Booster Gold is such an amazing character. Now, Booster Gold, sorry, he was a loser in the future and just couldn't do anything right. He just was not anything spectacular. Like he wasn't special. I think he tried to be a sports star, didn't work. He tried to be an actor, didn't work. So he used time travel and this machine skeets and a bunch of futuristic technology to come back to present day and become a superhero. But because Booster Gold didn't learn any other reason other than to try and be famous to be a hero, he's oftentimes like the butt of the joke, and he'll usually mess something up. How Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill's dynamic made Green Lantern into kind of like the lame superhero, because Channing Tatum was Superman in the Lego movie and Jonah Hill was Green Lantern, and Green Lantern kept trying to hang out with him, and then Justice League War, the animated movie, also made Green Lantern a loser because Batman was like, you couldn't follow a simple order, and Green Lantern would always say something silly. The original joke hero was Booster Gold. Not like a joke, like he's a jokester. It's just that he would always fail and he would try so hard. And he's very close friends with Blue Beetle, which is also awesome. Ted Kord, actually, not Jamie Reyes or Jaime Reyes. And but they're gonna do a Booster Gold TV show. He's awesome. He's awesome. I can't wait to see what they do with that. Like, if you get if you got like Greg Daniels or Michael Schur from The Office or Brooklyn Nine-Nine or anything like that, if you got them to write the Booster Gold show, it would be amazing. Or even Donald Glover, who did ATL, get him to do Booster Gold. He will do him justice. I'm about to wrap this up soon. Then also Lanterns. Now, Lanterns is supposed to be a True Detective type story, except set in space. True Detective, of course, being the HBO anthology series based around slowly uncovering a crime. The first season started Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey and was well known for its pace and directing, acting, and everything. So I'm excited to see that, because that's what I've always said about Green Lantern. People thought you should do Green Lanterns like Star Wars. No, Green Lanterns isn't Star Wars. Green Lanterns is Bad Boys. It's the Expendables. They're the rugged, because there's so many different species in the Green Lantern Corps that when you put them all together, they inevitably butt heads. The TV show, from back in the day, was really good at highlighting just how different these team members are, because they are a team. They're not a team, they're a force. So like different members of the force, because they're a police force, have different responsibilities, different attitudes towards how to handle things, different team ups to investigate different things. It was awesome. So I'm very excited to see where Lanterns goes. Paradise Lost, set in Themyscira, which is supposed to be like a Game of Thrones type thing. I'm not too excited about, because I'm not a Game of Thrones person. I do love Wonder Woman and I do love Themyscira. I loved the Themyscira scenes in Wonder Woman, especially the competition where she cheated to win in Wonder Woman 1984. But I'm not super psyched about it, because I'm just not a sword and sandals epic kind of person. I liked Lord of the Rings for a little bit, and then I realized like I don't like this stuff like that. It's, every now and then I watch like a Dragonheart or something, but I'm just not into it. But yeah, so those are all that's been announced thus far. Of course, you can check his actual video, James Gunn, I'm speaking of, to see his full breakdown of what it is that he's seeing for the future as far as actors go, who he's going to keep on, who he's not, because the idea is to have Aquaman 2 take place before Flashpoint, and Flashpoint will reset the entire DC universe into DC Studios, basically, and that's like almost like Rebirth, which was one of my favorite comics ever. It's a DC comic story where Wally West, the cousin of Flash, Barry Allen, or the second Flash after Barry Allen, is trying to come back into our reality after having been forgotten. It was awesome. It's such an emotional comic. And as he's about to be erased from existence, Barry Allen grabs onto him and pulls him back into our reality. And that caused a reset of the entire universe. And it went back to the DC that it used to be, mixed with the newer DC. It was awesome. So I think that's what we're looking at right now, like a rebirth, literally, of DC Studios. Now, also, what I had on the docket was The Last of Us. I think. No, Gods and Monsters. So this whole, it's where Marvel has phase 1, DC is doing chapter 1. Chapter 1 is titled Gods and Monsters. That's actually taken from a story arc, I believe. Actually, it's taken from a Brendan Fraser movie from back in the day. That's about him playing a gardener whose employer has a thing for him, I believe. But because DC is all about gods touching, like walking on Earth, Gods and Monsters makes sense, because the thing that's always kept superheroes relevant are the villains. That's why you've had the Joker, the Harley Quinns, your Lex Luthors, become big hit out. Black Adam had his own movie because the monsters are supposed to be just as important as the gods. Sometimes the monsters keep the gods in check. Sometimes the monsters are the gods themselves. So I like the idea of naming this first phase gods and monsters. And also, in every single Greek mythology that I read and studied when I was getting older, the gods always die. You know, whether it's through some form of comeuppance, whether it's through hubris, whether it's through some sort of morality tale, the gods always die. And I know that James Gunn has a penchant for killing off characters, whether beloved or otherwise. So Guardians of the Galaxy fans, just watch what happens. So I have no doubt in my mind that he will be unafraid to kill off major superheroes. I mean, now I'm not thinking like the Trinity, which is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, but you know, you're looking at a person who understands that stakes have to always be there. So I feel like some of these monsters might win. I feel like the gods may fall sometimes. But either way, I'm excited about the reboot of the entire franchise. I mean, all those actors who may not make it, they'll make it somewhere else. Henry Cavill will not fail. Ben Affleck probably already has an Academy Award nomination waiting, in the wings. Gal Gadot, if she's replaced, will be fine. Jason Momoa is an awesome guy, so he will be fine. And I don't even think we have to worry about Viola Davis and everybody else, John Cena and all them. So, I mean, whether it's a favoritism thing, I don't know. I don't want to go down that road because James Gunn did direct Peacemaker. But, either way, I'm excited about what the future holds and excited about what's coming next. Very briefly, I want to touch on the fact that Cody Rhodes, I got to get this thing right. It's so weird seeing mirror images. Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble this past weekend, came in at number 30 after rehabbing from his pectoral tear, or as some people say, he tore his titty and he came back. Cody Rhodes, I've loved him since he came around back in the 2000s. Cody Rhodes was in a group called Legacy. Actually, they were called Priceless first. It was him and Ted DiBiase Jr. And they actually cut this one scathing promo about how Hacksaw Jim Duggan, an older wrestler from the 80s, was pining for the glory days that, as Cody put it, weren't really that glorious after all. And that's the first time I saw like Cody Rhodes is going to be something. But unfortunately, WWE kept hedging their bets on the other guy in every single one of Cody's situations. Cody was with Ted DiBiase. They thought Ted was the star. Ted eventually retired. Then they put Cody Rhodes with Damian Sandow. With Drew McIntyre. They thought Drew was the star. Drew McIntyre would eventually become the star, but it took him a long time. And Drew eventually was fired before Cody, I think. I don't remember the timeline. And then they put him with Damian Sandow. Damian Sandow recently retired from wrestling. Like, they kept putting Cody Rhodes with these guys and picking other guys over Cody, like he was a placeholder. And then Cody Rhodes started doing this gimmick called Stardust, where he would paint his face and just basically be very weird. And that was it. He was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to go do my thing on the independent scene. Left WWE, went to the independent scene, lost his name. He was just known as Cody, the American Nightmare Cody, which was a funny time to see when you look back at his entrances. Never always loved Cody. Started AEW and was like one of the pillars of the company, but decided to do something unorthodox and say he would never challenge for the AEW championship if he lost one of these matches against I think it was Chris Jericho. He lost the match because of MJF, who's another wrestler, and could never challenge for the title again. So he started challenging for the secondary title called the TNT title, but it was not the same. And Cody would do these things where he would, make his supervillains of the week, and because he's a very big comic book nerd, he would kind of make these obstacles for himself to battle and to overcome. And it just started rubbing people the wrong way because it was like, why is Cody Rhodes the center of attention? And he eventually ended up getting booed at every single turn. And little did we know that his contract was expiring. And next thing you know, Cody finds himself back in WWE at last year's WrestleMania. I couldn't believe it. But then I very quickly realized what was going on. And this is just speculation based on listening to interviews where he, even most recently, he said on this past Monday Night Raw, when he came back on the Rumble, he said, he had to, put his mental health first. And, he had alluded in the past to not wanting to go certain directions or not wanting to be a gatekeeper, which is a wrestler who, when a new wrestler comes along, like a new younger wrestler comes along, they will face off against this gatekeeper to see if they can make it to the next level. And Cody would have kept losing to newer wrestlers. It's usually a 3-match situation. The new wrestler comes and they're attacked by the gatekeeper or vice versa. They fight the gatekeeper. The first match, they lose. Second match, the kid may lose again. Third match, the kid wins and then, goes on to bigger and better things. So Cody didn't want to be that. He wanted to be the guy. He wanted to be the main guy. And from being in love with him back in the day to watching him, point at the WrestleMania sign, which is also funny to hear him at the press conference saying, when I was younger, I was like, oh man, it's so lame to point at the WrestleMania sign. But the first thing he's like, as soon as I won, I was like, God, I want to point at that sign. And it's like, of course you want to, man. That's tradition. That's like if I won a Super Bowl, I would be like, I'm going to Disney World. Whether or not I actually went is moot. I would just say it because I know this is something that I'm supposed to do. So I just wanted to touch on Cody Rhodes doing that because I was very stoked and very excited about the fact that my boy is going to be main eventing WrestleMania, which is going to be one heck of a WrestleMania. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to log off because I have been on here for approximately 25 minutes and no one's going to watch this. So I'm going to just sign off. Till next time, this has been Mike is Streaming Stuff. I have been the nefarious Mike A. Sims. You have been fantastic, and I will see you on the flip side of humanity. All right, I'm out of here. They got to watch me slowly outside of this.